Welcome back to your dog's best friend, folks. We have a show today that will literally, hopefully not blow you away, because this dog is a hero. He is a true hero dog. This dog is a mine detector dog. His name is Dino, and he has helped to clear 1.5 million landmines from some of the war-torn Middle Eastern countries. Seldom do I get choked up when a guest is a hero, but he's a hero. And if it was in my purview, I would put the Congressional Medal of Honor on this dog now with the ribbons and that beautiful medal. That much of a hero. There's lots of more out there. We have for you today the Marshall Legacy Institute, and we have the dog Dino representing it, and Perry Baltimore, who is representing the Marshall Legacy Institute. Welcome, Perry.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. Great to be with you, and thank you for the opportunity to bring our life-saving dog to share our story.
Life-saving. Landmines, of which I have no great knowledge except what I read in the newspapers, are dangerous, and I've seen the limbs blown off from the folks in hospitals, and they do terrible, terrible holistic damage.
Yes.
And yet these dogs are helping to save those lives. So I'd like you to start with what is the genesis of the Marshall Legacy Institute? Why Marshall?
Marshall, George C. Marshall, General George C. Marshall, as you know, was a great American. And it's his name that's being used today in the Marshall Plan that helped rebuild Europe after World War II. And it was in the 50th anniversary year of the Marshall Plan, 1997, that our founder, General Gordon Sullivan, former Chief of Staff of the United States Army, was asked to do something to celebrate the life and work of a great American, George Marshall. So General Sullivan decided, okay, I'd like to do it, but I don't want to go out and have a one-time affair or a dinner dance or something, but he wanted to do something that might have some lasting impact. So he decided to form a nonprofit organization to extend the vision, to extend the legacy of George Marshall, to help countries around the world that are coming out of conflict and war situations.
Like to say the Berlin airlift was General Marshall's brilliant plan. And I love the words that I read in the newspaper related to yourself and Dino, in that the plan that Marshall developed was to help folks in war-ravaged countries to help themselves.
Exactly. Help them help themselves.
Help them help themselves.
We don't go into these countries to do the work for them. First of all, we're pulled in by them. They ask for our assistance, and what we do is provide resources and training for them to help them get rid of a scourge that affects about 1/3 of the countries around the world, these insidious killers called landmines. And you know, a country can't get back on its feet, and too many people suffer. It's hard to graze animals, it's hard to go back and build homes, it's hard to farm the land if you're concerned about landmines and explosives being left there in the ground.
I have read about the cattle being blown up, the women and children being blown up. So let's talk a little. The viewers really want to know about Dino. What kind of a dog is he? Where did you get him? And where is the training done prior to going to the Middle East?
Thank you, Lloyd. Dino is a Belgian Shepherd, or a Belgian Malinois, which is really the breed of choice to do this work. There are some 950 of these dogs working in 28 severely impacted, mine-affected countries around the world. Most of the dogs doing the work happen to be in the Shepherd family. Most are German Shepherds because they're most prolific and available. But the breed of choice is a dog just like Dino, the Belgian Malinois. A little bit smaller than the German Shepherd. The hair is a little bit shorter. They stand up a little bit better in the warm climates. The body is pretty straight from head to tail, and those hips stand up for 4, 6, 8 years. Dino worked for 8 years in Afghanistan. We sent Dino to Kabul, Afghanistan in 2007. He worked there for nearly 8 years until this year, about 6.5 weeks ago, we brought Dino back to the United States to be retired after doing the wonderful work that he did in clearing land to make it safe for the children and for the families to live on the land that he searched and helped free of the scourge of
Would you please name 7 or 8 of the countries in which these dogs work so the viewers know the help that they are given. These are hero dogs.
They are absolutely hero dogs.
What's the countries?
And we've been blessed by private Americans to send 200 of these dogs to 11 countries around the world. Those countries include Afghanistan, one of the most mine-affected in the world, and that's where Dino worked. And he and 28 of his buddies served in Afghanistan through our program. We also sent dogs to Angola. We sent dogs to Armenia, to Azerbaijan. We sent dogs to Bosnia-Herzegovina. And next week, we're going to Bosnia with a delegation of donors responsible for sponsoring those dogs so they can see those dogs in action. They can see firsthand the human effects of landmines, and they can absolve their dogs doing the hero work that they do in the field. But Bosnia-Herzegovina, 20 years after the war today, remains so impacted by mines.
Would you give a comparison of, and pick a time frame that you're comfortable, a week, a month, how many landmines could human military types clear compared to what he can clear in the same time frame?
It's a great question, and it's one we're frequently answered. In the early days of our work, we kept very close track of how many mines the human deminer and the dog teams would help find, but we found that doesn't really tell the whole story. The whole story is really told in how much land do they search and clear and are able to turn over safely to the communities. Because there are vast areas, Lloyd, in many of these countries that I mentioned earlier, where land isn't used, not because there's mines or explosives there, but because people think there might be a mine or explosive there. Maybe a week ago, a month ago, a year ago, or 5 years ago, maybe there's an explosion, maybe there's a carcass of an animal that's there left on the ground, so people are afraid to use the land. But maybe there isn't anything there. The dogs are so valuable because they can tell you very quickly if there is or isn't anything there. That's why we send so many of these dogs out there, to make the land safe and to free up the land for the people. Now, to tell you how much land they can search in one day, this is a performance metric that I think you and our viewers will find pretty impressive. If a brave young man or a brave young woman with a probing device going inch by inch in the ground, looking for something that might hurt someone in his family or somebody in his community so that he can get rid of it so that the land is safe for the people, if he works all day, typically 4 to 6 hours with his probe, he might be able to clear an area of about 50 square meters. Or let's imagine that as a football field.
Yes.
If he's standing at the goal line of a football field, looking at the goal post at the far end, if he wanted to clear the full width of that football field, he might work all day long and only get out to the 5-yard line. Now, give him another piece of equipment. Give him a good metal detector. We'll call it a mine detector, but unfortunately not all mines are made of metal. But let's assume in this threat instance, he's looking for a metallic mine. If there's not a whole bunch of battlefield debris, knives, forks, spoons, barbed wire, tin cans, and all that sort of thing, and he searches that football field looking for a metallic mine, he might be able to get out to the 10-yard line. Oh. So he can do a little bit better than the fellow with just the probe. But now you take a highly trained dog like Dino. Dino working with a well-trained handler, they're bonded together and certified as a team. Would you believe they just won't get out to the 5-yard line or the 10-yard? They'll get out to the 20, 30, 40, 50 and work their way down the other side. A dog team could score a touchdown and clear that just about that entire field. Search an area the equivalent of that football field every day. That's why these animals are so valuable, and that's why our organization, the Marshall Legacy Institute, has given, through these very generous American donors, 200 dogs to these countries in need around the world.
Now, given, where do they come from? Where do your mine detecting dogs come? Where do they start as puppies? Where do you train them? Where do you train the trainers? And the team goes to the Middle East.
All of our dog training is done by a wonderful organization located just outside of San Antonio, Texas, called Global Training Academy. The fellow that runs that outfit spent a career of 25 years in the U.S. Air Force and then started this private business of training dogs to do all sorts of wonderful work, to include mine detection. That organization has trained over half the 900 dogs that are working around the world today. And where do they get their dogs? Believe it or not, they go to mom and pop operations throughout Europe, mostly Western Europe and increasingly today into Central Europe. But they go to these little mom and pop operations to the sports clubs to get working breed shepherds in Belgian Malinois to do this work. Typically, when they're brought back to the United States, they're 12 to 18 months of age. They're brought to Texas, and then they've already had their obedience training. They've already had their socialization training. So they train for about 4 months, 10 hours a day, 6 days a week for 4 months on explosive imprinting, where the dog learns that searching for explosives that are hidden in the ground is a game. And when the dog is successful in finding the explosive, he gives a sit and stare response. And when he gives the proper response for an item that he's supposed to be looking for, he's given the treat. And the treat happens to be a Kong. So he does this work to get the Kong, or basically a rubber ball, and to be loved by his handler.
Now we've got a live mine in the ground. We've got Dino sitting and staring. Everybody knows there's something there. Who clears it? Who gets it out?
A highly trained ordnance disposal expert. Once the dog is extracted from the lane in which he's been working, and he's given his response indicating that, hey, there's something dangerous down here, the handler marks the spot, triangulates the spot on the ground so that people will know where the dog sat. The handler will then command the dog to come out of the lane, and then a highly trained ordnance disposal expert, somebody that's familiar with mines and knows how to deal with them, goes forward in protective clothing, Kevlar helmet, Kevlar vest, shield on his face, moon boots so he has a very small imprint on the field, highly trained, goes forward and explores the area where the dog sat. Usually, Lloyd, within 1 meter of where the dog sat, they'll find the source of the cause why the dog sat there. It's not always a live landmine. You know, it might be an artillery shell. You know, it might be some other kind of bomblet. Or it just might be a spent shell casing. But there's something with enough explosive residue on it that caused the dog to alert. If it is a live piece of ordnance, the ordnance disposal expert then is trained to destroy it in place. In situ, we call it. That's the safest way to do it. Maybe you use a laser, maybe you pack explosives around it, but you destroy this dangerous item in place. Do not pick it up and take it off to another area. Unfortunately, in some places around the world, that's done, but that is not the recommended solution.
Well, you mentioned there can be residue. Your dog's best friend always has been a teaching show. A teaching show to teach the public the value of our animals in our everyday life, helping people to restore themselves in war-torn countries, helping folks regain holistic health in nursing homes and hospitals,
Yes.
dogs and cats and ferrets. The dogs are used for every possible consideration of the improvement of human health and human lifestyle.
Yes.
This is something that's kind of brand new.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned residue, so I'm going to teach the public.
Yes.
There was groundbreaking work by a master's degree dog trainer, Glenn Johnson, in 1988, who, with science behind what I'm about to teach, proved that his shepherd's noses could scent discriminate better than 1 part in 3 trillion. So residue from a shotgun shell.
Yes.
Plenty of stuff there for the dogs to smell
Yes.
as they're approaching this residue. That's how the dogs find cadavers, and that's how the dogs are so excellent with their noses. And Dino has saved so many lives, it's beyond count. Now, we've got them purchased in Western Europe. We have them with trainers in Texas. They're going to go through 4 more months of intensive training for explosives. What's the next step? Get on a plane and take them over? How do you know where to go?
The next step, while those dogs are being trained, the Marshall Legacy Institute is speaking and coordinating with the people in the mine-threatened country that asked for these dogs to make arrangements for them to receive the dog sometime after they've been trained in Texas. And we typically send a 6-pack, 6 at a time. And you might say, well, why 6? Because one trainer can take 6 and deal with 6 dogs and train 6 local handlers to be able to safely employ those dogs.
I'm going to have to interrupt you as we have about 30 seconds left for the show. You are a fountain of knowledge. Dino is a fountain of working dog, a hero dog with the Congressional Medal of Honor on his neck now. And I want to get the last few seconds in sponsorship, because this is a sponsor program. The dogs can be sponsored. You went to State Department for a meet and greet. Yes. Folks, as we close down the show, Perry will be back at least 1 or 2 more times. Perry, dynamite.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity to bring Dino to your show.
I will bring Dino.
leaves on